Finally, we'll get to the shoot script. This script decides, or basically tells this character here or enemy, how to shoot at the player. Again, you can change this by clicking on the elliptical button and then going into the people directory. And you'll see we have a bunch of different shooting scripts. We have stuff like snipe, we have shoot close, we also have shoot. There are a few others, but these are the main scripts that you'll want to use. Again, if you want to see what they do, you can always right click, edit them in Notepad, and read the description of what the script actually does. So for instance, the snipe shoot, what this tells me is this character is basically going to stay far away from the player and snipe them out, or at least try to. Again, if I want to use this script, I just have to left click to select it and say open to bring it into the AI scripts underneath shoot. Finally, we have the view cone. What the view cone is it describes the horizontal field for this entity. So basically, when this entity is asked to detect the player within any one of these scripts, it's going to check its view cone angle and see how far it can look, basically from left to right, to see where the player is. If you were to set this to a low number like 10, this means that this character is going to have almost tunnel vision, so he's only going to be able to see straight in front of him. If you were to set this to a high number, this will increase their vision so they'll be able to see you sooner. Now we have respawn. For respawn, what I'm going to do is switch to an entity instead of a character. So I'm going to cancel out of this properties window, add a new entity, then I'm going to add a wooden box, such as this crate F underneath the sci-fi. Once we have this on our cursor, I'm just going to lay it down in our level here, and then right click to remove the copy, then finally right click to view its properties. Now I'm going to minimize all the different categories that we have, and then just leave respawn open. So to start out, we have spawn at start. If this is set to yes, which you can switch it in between yes and no, this will spawn the entity directly at the start of the level. Of course, if you were to set this to no, you will have to spawn this entity either with a script or another method. That's totally up to you. We also have max at any time. This sets whether the entity will spawn after dying. So basically, if this box gets blown up, say if I were to set this to 1, as well as some few other properties which we'll get to in a second, once this box dies, so its life reaches 0, it will spawn another box. Setting this to 0 means that this is the only box that can spawn, so it's the box that began the level. You can set this anywhere from 0 to a very high number. We also have maximum spawn. This sets the maximum times the entity can respawn. Every time that the entity gets destroyed and then respawns, this counter will go down. So you can set this to 10 times. So basically, this means that this entity, once destroyed, if set to 1, means that this entity can respawn 10 times. Underneath that, we have spawn after delay. You can change this from no to yes using the drop down. If you were to set this to yes, what this tells the game is basically it's going to spawn the entity after a delay value, which we'll get to in a second, but you'll also want to have to make sure that the spawn at start is set to no. If you were to say spawn at start yes, then spawn after delay yes, even though the game is thinking that this entity is going to spawn after a delay, you told it to spawn at the start, so the delay factors won't take effect. So changing the spawn at start to no, and spawn after delay to yes, and then coming down to delay and delay random, you can have that this entity will spawn after a number of seconds. We'll take a look at these two values in a minute. Coming back up, we have spawn when dead. And what this does, if you set to yes, will tell the game that once this entity is destroyed, it will respawn. Again, you can change this from yes to no depending on however you want your entity to behave. Now I said we get down to the delay and delay random. What the delay does is it sets the delay time for the entity. Now it works in units, or cycles I should say. Now 30 cycles are in a second. So you can set this anywhere from 0 to a really high number such as 900,000 if you want it to. We also have delay random. What this does is it will choose a value from 0 to whatever number we put in here. So for simplicity's sake, let's put this at 100 and put the delay random at 50. What the game will do is it will see that you want the entity to have a delay value, and it will choose a random value from 0 to 50 and add it on to the 100. So let's pretend it chose a random value of 25. Your delay would actually be 125 cycles before this entity gets basically put into the game. We also have number to spawn and quantity random. The number to spawn sets the number of entities that are going to be spawned at the spawn event. So currently this entity is set up to spawn after a delay of 125 to 175 cycles. If I wanted 3 entities to spawn at the same time here, so 3 boxes, I could set this number to 3. If I wanted a random quantity, so 3 or more, I could set this quantity random number to say 10, meaning that I can have anywhere from 3 boxes or 13 boxes spawn after the delay, or after the entity dies, depending on how you have this set up. We also have velocity and velocity random. What velocity does is it will set the speed at which this entity will be traveling when it's spawned. So when it's respawned, this entity can be moving. You can set this anywhere from 0 to an extremely high number if you wish. Say if I were to set this to 100, what it will do is once this entity respawns, the way it is facing, so currently I believe the front is facing this wall up here, it will mean that this box, when it respawns, it will be moving basically at the speed of 100 towards this wall. Again, you can add a random number to velocity anywhere from 0 to whatever you choose. So let's say I choose 50. The game will take a number randomly from 0 to 50 and add it on to 100, and then assign this box its velocity. We also have angle and angle random. What this does is it will choose an angle at which this box respawns at. So if you think of a protractor, you have 0 degrees, 90, 180, 270, and then back at 0 or 360. So you can choose the angle at which the box respawns at, and you can also add a random number to that angle. Finally, we have spawn life. Currently, it's set to 0. This means that when this entity respawns, time is not going to affect it. You can set this number to any number in seconds. So let's pretend I wanted this box to last 1 full minute after it respawns. I could set the spawn life to 60, which means 60 seconds, before this box dies again.